Clint Eastwood eventually talks about Rob Reiner's failures in raising his kid when he is 95. Clinton was Clint Eastwood's name. Eastwood Jr.B. was born in San Francisco, California, on May 31, 1930. The Great Depression made his early existence very insecure. His family moved a lot because his father was looking for employment. This taught young Eastwood how to be strong and independent, which would later shape both his on-screen character and his personal beliefs. He was a shy, thoughtful boy who liked to watch the world instead of talking loudly in it. This trait would eventually turn into the controlled intensity that made him renowned. Before Hollywood noticed him, Eastwood had a normal life with a lot of different experiences. He worked as a lifeguard, a paper carrier, and at a steel mill. He also served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. These early years taught him a lot about life and work, and he never lost that attitude, even after he became famous. Many stars looked to be formed completely by Hollywood, but Eastwood always had the point of view of someone who had lived outside of it. In the 1950s, Eastwood's playing career started out tiny with small parts in movies. However, his first big break came on TV. He got the part of Rowdy Yates in the Western show Rawhide in 1959. The show lasted for 8 seasons and introduced millions of people to Eastwood, making him a reliable leading man. But instead of letting his success on TV hold him back, Eastwood took a big risk that would change his life forever. He went to Europe in the middle of the 1960s to star in a series of low-budget westerns directed by Italian filmmaker Sergio Leone. A fistful of dollars for a few dollars more, and the good, the bad, and the ugly changed the Western genre and made Eastwood's famous Man with No Name famous. Eastwood established a new kind of movie hero with few words, penetrating eyes, and a cool, calm attitude. This hero said less, but had a lot of moral weight. These movies made him a worldwide star and changed the way action movies are created forever. Eastwood kept changing who he was in the 1970s once he went back to Hollywood. Dirty Harry's portrayal of Inspector Harry Callahan is one of the most famous movie characters of all time. Even though it was contentious, the role showed how tense things were at the time and made Eastwood a figure of justice and determination. Even while people liked his tough guy image, Eastwood was already thinking about how to change again. Eastwood started Malpaso Productions because he wanted to be in charge of his own creative future. The company gave him more freedom than ever before. He was a very efficient, humble, and respectful director who worked with others. He was noted for shooting quick, not doing too many takes, and trusting performers to provide honest performances. This way of doing things made him seem real, and the people who worked with him were very loyal to him. Eastwood's movies became more and more self-reflective as he made them. Films like Unforgiven broke down the myths he used to live by and gave a sad look at violence, regret, and getting older. The movie received 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. This cemented Eastwood's status as one of the best filmmakers of all time. Later works like $1 Million Baby, Gran Torino, Mystic River, and Letters from Iwo showed even more of his moral depth, emotional control, and courage to face hard facts about people. Eastwood's originality did not fade as he got older, which is amazing. It got deeper. Many artists stay out of the spotlight, but Eastwood kept directing and performing into his 80s and 90s. He brought wisdom, compassion, and thought to themes about legacy, forgiveness, and the passage of time. His latest movies don't seem like attempts to stay relevant. Instead, they seem like meaningful contributions from a guy who has lived completely and watched carefully. Eastwood is a talented musician in addition to being a great actor. He is especially good at playing jazz piano and writing music. Music has always been a vital yet silent part of his life and movies. It typically adds subtle refinement to emotional scenes instead of overt drama. This sensitivity shows even more about the artist behind the public persona, who is thoughtful, measured, and very human. People have been just as interested in Clint Eastwood's personal life, especially his marriages and family ties, as they have been in his famed film career. Eastwood has always had a quiet, stoic public image, like the characters he played on television. but his private life tells a more complicated story of long-term commitments, changing relationships, and a strong feeling of duty to his children. Clint Eastwood married Maggie Johnson on December 19, 1953. This would be one of the longest and most important relationships of his life. Eastwood was still a struggling actor at the moment, not the famous person he would eventually become. Maggie Johnson, who came from a more stable and normal family, married Eastwood before he became famous and his life and work changed. Their marriage lasted more than 30 years, through the ups and downs of Eastwood's journey from obscurity to international fame. Eastwood's career took off in the late 1950s and 1960 seconds, first with the TV show Rawhide and then with his innovative Man with No Movies. As he became more famous and had a busy work schedule, their relationship became more strained. Even with all of these problems, the union had 2 kids who would each go on to make their own way in life. Kyle Eastwood, their son, was born in 1968. He became a well-known jazz bassist and composer who sometimes wrote music for movies, including some for his father's films. Their daughter, Allison Eastwood, was born in 1972 and went on to become a director and environmental activist after starting out as an actress and filmmaker. Even though Clint Eastwood wasn't always around in the traditional sense because of his profession, he stayed close to his kids and supported their goals. He often encouraged them to be independent and creative instead of pushing them into his shadow. In 1984, the marriage to Maggie Johnson officially terminated in separation after years of personal problems and long periods of being apart. At the time, reports said that Johnson got a large divorce settlement, between $25 and $30 million. Because the marriage lasted so long and Eastwood was already doing quite well financially, even though they had a divorce, their connection didn't turn bitter. Over the years, they have both talked well of each other, which suggests that even though the marriage couldn't last because of the stress of fame and their different lifestyles, it was still an important part of both of their lives. Eastwood was married again on March 31, 1996, to Dina Ruiz. This was a big deal for Ruiz, a TV news anchor, was much younger than Eastwood, and their relationship got a lot of media attention right away. This marriage happened after Eastwood had already become a well-known figure, an Oscar-winning director, and a cultural institution. During this time in his life, Dina Ruiz often went with him to public events and became a well-known figure. She sometimes did interviews and reality TV shows that gave people a unique look into Eastwood's private life. In 1996, the couple had a daughter named Morgan Eastwood. Morgan didn't spend a lot of time in the public eye when she was a child, but she later tried acting and modeling, and was in a few movies and TV shows. Many people say that Eastwood was a dedicated father to Morgan, especially in his later years, when he constantly talked about how important it was for families to be stable and present. His bond with Morgan showed a gentler, more overtly fatherly side of a man who has long been known for his harsh, emotionally distant cinematic roles. But this marriage also has problems. Dina Ruiz said in public in August 2013 that she and Eastwood were living apart, which meant that their relationship was over. The breakup rapidly became public, and the divorce that followed in 2014 got a lot of media attention. People say that the breakup was sometimes very unpleasant, with arguments over money and personal space. It was also a rare time when Eastwood's private life was the focus of a lot of public attention. The divorce, however, was legally final, which meant that both parties could continue on with their lives. Clint has been married twice, but people often say that Eastwood's family life is complicated and not typical. Many people think he had 8 kids with 6 different women. This has led to a lot of discussion and interest throughout the years. Eastwood himself has mostly stayed away from verifying exact numbers, since he has always been hesitant to talk about personal information. This choice seems deliberate, as he has always thought that his work should come before tabloid stories. Even while he hasn't said much about it, it's evident that Eastwood has stayed close to his kids and, in many cases, helped them emotionally and professionally, even when those relationships were created outside of typical family structures. At 95 years old, Clint Eastwood has reached a point in his life where thinking about things is more important than holding back. Eastwood has lived for almost 100 years, raised 8 children, and worked with generations of filmmakers. Now, he talks with the quiet authority of experience instead of controversy. Eastwood gave some rare comments when asked about parenting in Hollywood and how it differs from how some of his contemporaries do it. Many people thought they were a direct criticism of Rob Reiner's parenting methods. Eastwood didn't talk with anger or hatred. Instead, his statements had a calm, almost philosophical tone that came from years of juggling celebrity, parenting, and personal responsibility. I've never thought that keeping a child safe from the world gets them ready for it. Life isn't easy, Eastwood added. Pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone grow. Eastwood didn't name any specific events, but he compared his personal conviction in independence to what he sees as a more lenient, ideology-based kind of parenting that grew widespread in later generations of Hollywood. He said that loving your child and keeping them from all the hard truths are two different things. When parents mix them up, the youngster thinks the world will conform to their will. People who know Eastwood believe that his views were based on more than just what he saw. They were also based on his long-term experience with Hollywood households, where fame, politics, and public approval frequently make it hard to tell the difference between discipline and self-reliance. Eastwood mostly raised his kids away from the public eye, teaching them to work hard, be responsible, and be strong instead of feeling entitled. He said, "I didn't teach my kids to agree with me. I taught them how to stand on their own." Eastwood recognized Rob Reiner's talent and accomplishment, but he also said that being a creative genius doesn't mean you are a good dad. Eastwood said, "Just because you're a great filmmaker doesn't mean you're a great father. Being a parent isn't about getting praise or being liked. Letting your child fail, struggle, and learn who they are on their own is what it's all about." Eastwood has always believed in taking responsibility for oneself, which is a theme that runs through both his movies and his life. He thinks that too much ideological direction, whether it's political, social, or cultural, might put too many expectations on a child that aren't really theirs. Kids shouldn't think that they are their parents' beliefs, he stated. They should learn to find their own. Eastwood doesn't feel like he has to tone down his views to keep people happy at this point in his life, but his comments were really free of judgment. Instead, they showed silent worry for a generation that grew up with continual validation and public scrutiny. If you teach your child that the world owes them something, you've already done them a disservice, he said. The world doesn't owe us anything. That's the first thing to learn. In the end, Eastwood's comments were less about Rob Reiner as a person and more about what he perceives as a bigger change in Hollywood parenting, where protection is more important than preparedness. As Eastwood nears the end of his life, his thoughts are heavy with time, and they don't criticize, but warn. He came to the conclusion that you don't make things easy for powerful individuals. You teach them how to deal with it.